we have today we'll start a topic that's known as biomolecules. So biomolecules is our next topic. So here in this topic, we'll be discussing the various kinds of the biomolecules. Uh, so various kinds of the molecules, various kinds of the macromolecules, and various macromolecules and micromolecules which are found in the biological systems. So we talk about these. What are these examples of these biological molecules? Or we have carbohydrates, and we have number two, we have proteins, and we have third thing, lipids, and then we have another thing which are known as nucleic acids. Fourth point is nucleic acids are there. So carbohydrates are often referred as sugars. They're often referred as sugars, whereas these sugars, carbohydrates, which are actually the sugars, and then proteins are actually they are made up of amino acids linked by peptide bonds. Similarly, if we look at the lipids and looking at the carbohydrates, they are made of the glucose-like chemicals. Molecules are made up of carbohydrates, are made up of glucose-like chemicals, and lipids are made up of esters of fatty acids with glycerol. And that means they're esters of fatty acids with glycerol, and these are nucleic acids, or like DNA and RNA. They are actually the polymers of nucleotides, and these are the various kinds of the biomolecules that are found in the biological systems. Besides, there are minerals, and which can be just minerals, or they are fifth, very important for life, minerals like macromolecules and these macronutrients and micronutrients, which are which are very important for the plants and animals, the biological systems. And then we have one more thing called vitamins. So vitamins are also the sixth category. So when we look at these chemicals, when we look at the first topic is out of this, we'll talk about carbohydrates. These carbohydrates are defined as the hydrates of carbon. Hydrates of carbon means here there's one carbon and one water molecule. So to one carbon, one water molecule. So hence we can call them the hydrates of carbon. But actually, it's not the watertight definition of carbohydrates. Okay, so carbohydrates can be they're also called as sugars. They are also known as sugars because of their sweetness. They're sweet to taste, and but it's not an important definition of the carbohydrates. So carbohydrates can be defined as the polyhydroxy aldehydes, and so aldehyde is a CHO group, and and ketones. And such derivatives, they're called as C double bond O. There's a ketone group is there, C double bond O group, and they are also the polyhydroxyaldehydes and ketones. So I just told you about three definitions of the carbohydrates. They can be called hydrates of carbon because if there's a one carbon to one carbon, one water molecule is present, it's not the watertight definition of carbohydrates because they can sometimes also called as a sugars or sweet or taste, or they call or a better word, saccharides. Saccharides, because of their sweet nature, they're called as sugars. But biochemically can be defined as the polyhydroxyaldehydes and ketones. That means carbohydrates are having the two kinds of the functional groups. One is the aldehyde, another is a another is a ketone. So aldehydes and ketones are their two types of the groups which are found in the carbohydrates. So these carbohydrates are found in all the biological, all animals and plants and fungi and bacteria. So in all the biological world, these carbohydrates are present. And after covering the definition, let's look at their classification now. Carbohydrates are classified into two groups, or three groups rather. We have one of the group of carbohydrates known as monosaccharides. We call them as monosaccharides. So that depending upon complexity, we have the simple monomers. So they are actually monomers, monomeric monomers. That means they are made of a single single unit and cannot be further hydrolyzed. So we'll call them as monosaccharides, or single unit. They contain single sugar unit, and cannot be further hydrolyzed. So that means that upon hydrolysis, they cannot be broken into simple forms. Then there are another category of carbohydrates is here we have, they are known as oligosaccharides. And the oligosaccharides can be either 2 units. If there are 2 units, they are called as disaccharides. And if there are 3 units, they are called as trisaccharides. And there are 4 units which are known as tetrasaccharides. Accordingly, they can be called as oligosaccharides, and in oligo means a few. Oligo means a few units. Here you can say oligo means a few units. So they can be disaccharides, they can be trisaccharides, or they can be tetrasaccharides. Then we have next one, which is polysaccharides. We have next one, which is known as polysaccharides, and they are made up of the many units linked together by glycosidic bonds. Many units. So just we have 3 kinds of carbohydrates now: monosaccharides, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. So in this topic, we'll take a first one, that is the monosaccharides. We'll take our first one. We'll take up monosaccharides. So the monosaccharides are known as, these monosaccharides are simple sugars. Let's look at their characteristics. These are simple sugars, number 1. Number 2, they cannot be further hydrolyzed. They cannot be further hydrolyzed. Cells utilize them directly. Cells oxidize them directly in the cell respiration. Okay, I hope you understand. And just like we have some examples here, we have some examples like glucose is used by our cells, like fructose. Fructose is also called as a fruit sugar. Glucose is um, blood sugar, and fructose, etc. So we have the simple sugars are the sugars. They cannot be further hydrolyzed. They cannot be. They are simple sugars. They are made up of single units. So they are made up of single unit. Made of single unit. So we call them as monosaccharides, and they cannot be further hydrolyzed. Cells oxidize them when they are taken inside the cell. Cells oxidize them in the cell respiration process. We have example like glucose, fructose is there. Fructose is fruit sugar. They are made up of the single units, so we call them as the monosaccharides. But if we look at the oligosaccharides, then oligosaccharides are made up of the two units. They are made of two units. The two units are linked by a glycosidic bond. I will explain them later. And 3 units are made of trisaccharides. They are made up of 3 units, and they can 4 units. And these trisaccharides and tetrasaccharides, they are transport sugars in the plants, whereas polysaccharides like cellulose and cellulose is there, starch is there, glycogen is there. You can just take here examples: starch, cellulose. You can take another example as glycogen. So I would take them in the, we'll discuss this in next lecture. This is all for the day.